Welcome, welcome, welcome to One Cake Wine. Great that you could be here. Got a little bit of a different format this time. I thought what I'm going to start doing, wrap up a longer video once a month. Saves me on editing time. Also, it helps compress and formulate an overall impression of how the month was from a wine perspective. So I think that's interesting. And then I also think that it's maybe easier for you if you're gonna watch. You don't have to sit all the way through. You just go into the video description part and click more. I'll put markers so it's split up into the different things I talk about throughout this video. And then you can just jump around, stay as long as you like, leave when you want, pick up on a certain wine, or ignore the whole thing. I'm gonna keep doing shorts once a week. Anybody who is interested in watching, then at least you have some options. All right, but first off, what do we got in the glass? It's kind of soapy, actually. It's pear that lacks the acidity. When they get ripe, super yellow.
Oh.
They get soft. There's a beautiful mineral background to this. Pretty good presence. I missed the drive. It's a 2018 Michel Bouzereau Cros. I did a note on the 2020 during the summer, and I think the 2020, I like the energy a little bit more. I think these are meant to be drunk young. I picked these up at auction. For all I know, they sat in some retailer's window for 3 years. There was a lovely biscuit, almost getting into some marzipan. It just needs zing. And if it had a little zing, it'd be great. So with that behind us and my whistle wet, why don't we zip right in? The first thing I want to talk about for May is an experience we just had maybe a week ago. Down at Falsterbo Photo Art Museum. It was a beautiful day, 22 degrees, southern Sweden, where you can see the sky was blue and, there was no wind. It was one of those gorgeous days where it was made for drinking wine, and the setting itself, I mean, in a photo art museum, that's genius, because there's another level of things going on. And then there's a third level, of course, because it was a wine, food, and art thing. Festival, I suppose. So there was 4 different dishes. Oysters was the one I stuck with. Highlights. I did a short video. Maybe you watched it, maybe you didn't. But if you didn't, then include the link here. Jadot white wines, the Puny Montrachet 2021, the Merceau Charme 2021, and the Corton Charlemagne 2021. Of those 3, I think the Merceau Charme is the one that's most immediately appealing and ready to go. I had the Jadot Cheval 2021, and I really like that. It had quite a finesse to it. Lovely already, also long, maybe a bit shy mid-palate. I think it'll fatten up. I think it'll be a great wine. It's really good right now. It's a pop and pour type wine for me. Except other than the price, it's a pop and pour. I think they're too much. How are we taking 2,500 kroners for a bottle or more for Cheval? But we are, and that's the reality of Bernie these days. And from that perspective, it's really nice to be able to go to a festival like this and try little samplers. That was my strategy here. I went through 4 books of tickets. I stuck to the higher end of the tables, or more interesting things on the tables. Outside, they had a champagne bar, Taittinger, and Gossett. None of the big guns, but the Gossett 15 was there, as was Taittinger 15. 15's a big vintage in Champagne, so it's kind of nice to drink them, try them. I tried the Taittinger Brut Rosé, which was nice. It was a lifted all-rounder, I think is how I described it. It's not super finesse. It's not something I need to revisit, but if I was served a glass in a restaurant or in a club at a party, I wouldn't complain. It's nice. The Brut Reserve I did try, and I wasn't particularly fond of it. The Gossett 15 is a step down from Taittinger. It's funny because it's got a little bit of almost like a sweaty nose to it. So I think there's more going on in a sense, but it's not a particularly attractive more going on. I think the bubbles are kind of big, it lacks finesse, it's kind of clunky, and maybe it'll round out into something. I tried the Rosé as well. All right, Gossett has never been a house for me, but I'm glad I got to try them. And of course, sitting on that deck, tried them with oysters. Who's going to complain about that? I went downstairs, I tried some Barolos from Veglio, the Barolo Arborino 2019. There were 3 different Barolos, differences in the ages of the vines. The Arborino stuck out for me, all finesse, beautiful, already sort of presenting itself as a true Barolo with class and distinction, and without being heavy or muscly or pushy at the plate, you know, waiting for the perfect pitch. It's a really good wine. Cherry and tannin, gem-like, I thought, and longish. Lovely balance and cream. The Castelletto from the same vintage, 2019, was a little leafier, a little greener, maybe, but still clean and still had presence about it, and a very good Barolo. I think it's a good producer. I think it's a fair price. Veglio, good discovery. My favorite discovery of the day, I've saved for last, a Swedish producer of a grape called Solaris. I don't think that's the actual name of the grape. Are you there? I think it's been nicknamed Solaris, but don't quote me on that. I've seen it referred to as Solaris, but when I talked to the producer who was at the station, she didn't use Solaris as the name of the grape. Anyway, the Incognito was their top of the line for 2022 at the very least. I think she explained that the vines were planted in 2001 and they're just starting to come into production in a quality sense. Very heavy black currant bud. So if you're not a fan of the Sauvignon, which previous videos will attest to the fact that it's not my favorite type of style, but if you do like it, if you like white Bordeaux, for instance, that's Sauvignon dominated. Less Semillon to it, or more Sauvignon to it. I think this competes. It's a very, very good wine. There's a lot of energy in this, especially in the finish. I really love the mid palate of it. It's just that stupid flavor, that black currant stuff, which you either love it or I guess there's a mid level of you can take it or leave it, and then there's a level of I just dislike it. It's kind of cat pee-ish, isn't it? But this is a superb wine, superbly structured, very fairly priced. It's a bit of a shame that they're not more well-known and more recognized, and I think that's going to come. But wow. And it's in my backyard, as you can see. I cycle right by it on one of my regular routes. I never noticed it before. I just saw this sign. It says vineyard. That's what Vingård means. I thought it was some hobbyist or something, and there's no name of the producer or anything. So I went up there and I took a look, and I can see that they're planting there's new plants going in, and busy times there. So very good. Nice to see a success story and a local one. So that was my discovery for the wine and art show. And I mean, I haven't even talked about the art. It is a photo museum first and foremost, most days of the year. So, and it's in a beautiful natural setting. So for me, it's, if you're gonna make the trip over to this part of the world, then it should be one of those destinations that you kind of go and visit. If you like photography, if you like the 80s and 90s, especially type of art photography, fashion photography, you're gonna love it. Moving right along, actually ties in quite nicely to the next thing I'm going to talk about. We had our group tasting again. The tie-in there for me is one of the wines that we had that night was a white Cheval Blanc. And I immediately, on the nose, it was overwhelming black currant bud. So I knew it's Sauvignon or white Bordeaux or potentially a Swedish wine. And the fact of the matter is that it didn't have the energy of the Skyaasen wine. Does it have more elegance without the energy? I don't know. I just think that grape probably needs a little bit of energy. Not fully convinced. The Cheval Blanc apparently has 25% Sauvignon Blanc to it. It's 2019, dominated by that black currant bud. And in the finish, there's a striking difference, and that's in the wood. The wood finish really comes through. You can taste the quality in it. There's a difference there. That, I think, it's a saving grace, because otherwise the mid palate's a little and the Semillon hasn't come out yet, so it doesn't have that interest factor yet. I think it could be an even better wine than it was on the night.
Good gravy!
There were a lot of highlights in no particular order, but we did start with champagne, 2012 Cristal. And the funny thing is, I've had this wine a number of times. I've had it airport bottles, but also when it was released here at Systembolaget, I stood in line and picked up a couple bottles and drank those a long time ago. I really loved them right from the get-go. I thought 2012 was like a lovely, but still, well-composed vintage, not a soft vintage, well-composed, piano-like. On the night here, it was just so delicious, a wonderful experience. It isn't changing in its profile very much. It's just getting a little bit more, you know what I mean? It's sort of growing into its clothes. The other one was a surprise, a bit of a gamble, but an excellent one, I must say. First of all, Champagne 87. I guessed 89 because I thought it wasn't an 88, didn't have that sort of drive of 88 or the round sort of presence of a 90. And the 89, they're a little softer around the edges, right? I've never had a champagne from 1987, the Cuvée Louise from Pommery. And it was fantastic, especially when it warmed up a little bit. It got a little bit of nuttiness to it and marzipan. It was very much about a tartine, the pear and the caramel, crispy caramel and the baked sort of goodness about it. As it warmed up, it became more lively when it had a little chance to warm up to its environment and, it was invited out and it got a chance to sort of step out of the glass and say, how do you do?
Hey, how are ya?
Then we were in the presence of a really top wine. Really, really, very, very nice. Equal points-wise to the Cristal in one way, but a completely different champagne, a completely different champagne experience. Really fun to have those two side by side. And no, my eyes are open at auction for 87 champagne. Some of the other highlights included, I think for me especially, the white Sine qua non. Trying to determine what that wine was blind was a hell of a job because he's blending Chardonnay with Northern Rhone grapes, so Roussanne and Marsanne. And there might be other things in there, but I know there's quite a large percentage of Chardonnay, and it was detectable for sure. Great wine. Really superb presence. Well, he's such a manco at Sine qua non. Everything is always so well judged. Even if the wines are not your cup of tea, so to speak, everything is perfectly balanced and wonderfully thought out. I came with a 1982 Clos de Canton Faiveley. 82, I know, is not going to be a great vintage, but at the same time, I'd read some suspiciously interesting reports. And I'm a little torn with Faiveley because I've had some of their wines from 1959 that I bought at auction some years ago now, but even so, not that long ago. And they were magnificent examples of good old school Burgundy. I'd been kind of in the back of my head thinking that I gotta drink a little bit more Courtauld, price-wise, first of all. There's probably still some values to be had, but also because if I want to taste old school Burgundy, I'm probably going to have to give up. I can't buy Musigny like I used to, or Richebourg like I used to. I'm outpriced. I don't have that kind of money. Jeez. In any case, it was a very good wine. But it wasn't, there was tea, very tannic and a bit rough around the edges. The funny thing is I had a little tiny glass 2 days later, just a little bit from the bottle, and I saved it, tasted it. Lovely. Rounder, the tannin had settled down, the strawberry fruit came out. It was darker. I mean, the color was way off, but the wine itself, maybe I should have opened it earlier. I don't know. It did okay. I don't think we need to talk too much about it. It wasn't great. The other bottle of wine I opened during this tasting, the 2020 Pommery from Skyaasen. I was kind of crazy with the 2021. That had 11.5% alcohol. It was light. And this was 14% alcohol. It was a dark, big, furry cookie dough monster. It was massive. Just a massive Foursquare kind of wine. Nobody got Pinot Noir out of it. Except me, because I knew what it was. Not a success on that level, and wasn't really particularly appreciated by anybody except me. I still see the genuine quality in this. They're gonna be something. In my opinion, they already are. I mean, it's not just me that's noticed. Okay, I think what I'll do is you can see what we had. And if you want me to talk about any of them, leave it in the comments and I'll provide my notes because I've got some written notes around each of the wines that we had that night. Great! Some of the other things that happened over the month, it was the ones I didn't do videos around. Maybe we'll start there. 2021 Chateau d'Isson. It's a very good D'Isson. It is. It's not the 16. It's not as good as that. It's not as refined as that, but boys, it's spicier almost, I think, more cigar box. There's an elegance to it, a real tone. If you leave it overnight and you come back to it, the only thing that it lacks is drive, because there's more of a fatty, seductive feel to it. It's very Margaux, but it's not a Premier Grande, so why should it have that? At the same time, just because everything else is so promising, it's like, and maybe that's the role. Maybe it's to make you kind of want to go out and try those other ones. One of the wines I had earlier in the month, a 1984 Chateau Trotanoy Pommery. A very good wine, but they're so tannic, I mean, it held really well too over the whole time I tasted it, and sort of even got more complex, I would say, later on. But the tannins, it's so imposing. I don't know what Trotanoy was doing in those days. If you've had a newer Trotanoy and you don't have that tannic impression, again, I'd appreciate a note or a comment or, just tell me what your experience was. Train-score, what is it, 2022, yeah, the Sadie family train-score. I don't know why I bought this, because I had to try something, Tinta Barocca. Maybe you saw the video. This had some positive qualities about it, but I think it's overpriced for what it is. The Cheval Libre. This is an interesting wine, especially in the context of having talked about Cheval Blanc white and the Incognito. And of the three wines, I like the Incognito the best. So I like the Swedish one for 350 kroners compared to 80 euros. And the Cheval Blanc is expensive. This was a very good wine. I can see something happening to it. I think eventually it's going to turn into something. I don't mean eventually this bottle will be. I think eventually this vineyard will be something. For now, I don't know that I would wait on this. I've got a 2015 I'm going to try, and we'll have to see then. But I don't think my impression will change too much. If I had to sum it up, I'd say it's just too Sauvignon for me. Here's another wine that I didn't actually do a note about, so there's no video existing on this one. It's the 1473 Chardonnay from Michel Bouzereau. This has got a story to it. There's 1,185 bottles. It's not very many. It's surrounded on all sides, if you look at a map, by Meursault-Perrier. So it is a terroir in Meursault-Perrier. It's an island. It's very, very apparently pentu, so steep. They recovered it some years ago and decided to try and make some vines. I think they're fairly young, the vines are, and they're trying to see, what it's going to be, what it could be eventually. I really liked it. I thought it was a really great wine. It isn't Perrier because it doesn't have the drive of Perrier. It doesn't have the big, muscly presence of a Perrier, but it's a lovely, delicate Burgundy. Right now you're paying because of the scarcity, the rarity of these. And if you're a Bouzereau fan, you have to try them. I mean, you have no choice. I think this is going to be something he's probably going to, I don't know if he's going to eventually assimilate it into the Perrier or keep it separate or not. I have another bottle of this but I'm saving to open with a bottle of his Perrier because I think it'd be an interesting tasting to have them side by side. I don't really have much more to add to this other than to say it's very linen, almost more Puligny because of a softer presence, a breezy presence to it rather than a stony, heavy feel. And I like that. I like that sort of teasy. It's making me thirsty. 2020 Tignanello. I like Tignanello for an industrial premium wine. It's a very good one. It's always complex. And with 10 years of age, it starts singing, it starts really singing stuff. But right now, this is licorice, a lot of tannin, and a bit high-toned. But I know it'll be a great wine in 10 years, 5-10 years. I just don't think it'll be one of the very best Tignanellos. It didn't strike me as like, 04, 06 kind of stuff. Another wine that I haven't done a video for Man, have I taken the month off or what? This is the Picaro from Delaguila. Normally, I think blind you wouldn't tell it was a rosé. It'd be more. It's a high quality white wine, and their white wine is a high quality white wine already. So it's kind of nice to find one that's mid price point. It's like half the price of the white. This year, maybe a little bit too fleshy and a little bit too alcoholic right now, especially in its youth. It doesn't have the balance it normally has, and that works against it a little tiny bit. 2021. Trying to find the alcohol. 14. It's not terrible, but in a rosé, it's not ideal. It sounds like I'm complaining, and I'm not. I bought 3 bottles and I've already drank 2 of them. So, I mean, it's not that much of a hardship. I plan to do a video of it coming soon. This was a wine that, again, I don't think I did a video around. Veglio. It's a Côte d'Ira from Domaine de l'Aigle du Quai. This wine has just a touch of that sort of nuttiness, but just barely, just enough to give it interest. The rest of it is bright, shiny, with some depth. And a very sunny wine, delicious, maybe not super complex and super layered, but fresh and overflowing with joy in a way. Enough so that I picked up older vintages at auction just to try them with some age, because I was very interested. I thought it was a very high quality producer. I think this is a bit of a discovery. I find the vin nature that I am trying these days, they're not as dirty and disappointing as they were 10 years ago. I guess everybody's going to get better at what they do, but I think it's more than that. I think it's expectations as well have forced better wines out of the producers, so they can't just get away with dumping something in a bathtub and hoping for the best. I don't know. That's cruel, but that's what it tasted like sometimes. It tastes like someone's feet.
Nice.
It's been a great month. I think May was delicious. There were no real superstars that blew my mind. I think it was really nice to revisit the 2012 Cristal. It was really fun to try an 87 champagne. So the Cuvée Louise from Pommery. I think my real big discovery was the Incognito from Klagshamn. That I think is fantastic. A Swedish wine that is kind of flying under the radar. I can understand why the local wine drinkers would downplay it a little bit, but I don't think they should. They should be celebrating it, actually. That wraps up May. I wonder what June will bring. I hope it's lots of good stuff. If you made it this far, you've shown all kinds of tenacity and energy. I hope you used the markers to skip around and watch the things that were of interest to you. And if not, that you watched the whole thing and it didn't put you to sleep. And if I did put you to sleep, it was a good, deep, refreshing sleep. All right. Until the next time, stay thirsty.